I want to ask you this. Are you making more money than you've probably ever made before? I bet you are. Yet why are your savings dwindling? Why does your bank account get smaller and smaller despite how much money you save or make? I bet you're finding yourself skipping the meat aisle or putting down that bag of fresh peppers when you realize that it'll cost you almost $10. Clearly, you are not alone. Here's one report from Bloomberg. 2/3 of Americans who consider themselves middle class are now facing financial hardship. Car repossession rates are also the highest they've been in decades. Auto billing disputes have seen, get this guys, a 96% increase from just last year. Americans also, they're drowning in debt, credit card debt like they've never have before. The New York Federal Reserve is now reporting 1 in every 4 Americans have maxed out all of their credit cards. A quarter of the country, it is struggling just to even make their minimum credit card payment. But still, the Biden administration wants to tell you that everything is great, the economy is strong. Don't believe your eyes, ears, or, of course, your bank accounts first, folks. You know, I mean, Friday's job report, which shows that the United States added more jobs than expected, it's, of course, being praised by the White House. And then, of course, you got the fake news. It follows. Here's CNN spin. Key takeaways from the blowout May jobs report. Blowout? Are you kidding me? Inflation, which is essentially a tax on the middle class and the poor, it continues to rise without any relief in sight. Unemployment is up and the labor force shrunk and the jobs added low income. The majority of them, almost actually all of them, went to foreign people, illegals. And then, you know, I want you to take a listen to how Lael Bernard, National Economic Council Director, tried to explain away those facts I just mentioned.
So what do you make of the fact that the household survey showed 400,000 subtraction on jobs? The unemployment rate ticked up to 4%, first time we've seen that in a few years, and the labor force actually shrunk.
So, you know, there's some churn in those numbers that is perhaps related in particular to workers in the 20 to 24 age bracket who may be transitioning into the job market during this time of year.
I mean, what is she, KJP with all those, I mean, listen, lady, I mean, I don't blame you for stumbling over your words. I'd be freaking out too if my job was to be on national TV and lie to the American people. But here are some more facts for all of you at home. Prices have gone up 20%. That's an underestimate. Since Joe Biden took office, 20%. Compare that under President Trump before the pandemic hit. And inflation was basically non-existent, less than 2%. All Americans, though, thankfully, they're finally waking up. Even longtime Democrats, people in the inner city, people of color. Let's take a listen to Texas Congressman Wesley Hunt.
You cannot build generational wealth when you live in paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. It really is just that simple. 4 years ago, we were not living paycheck to paycheck, and now we are. And I think people are realizing that, especially Black men, that we want to get back to that. Mm-hmm. And how do we build that wealth for our families? How do we live just in a better way?
And not only generational wealth, but you can't buy a home if you're living paycheck to paycheck. You can barely pay your bills now living paycheck to paycheck. And when people are struggling, the last thing the government should do is raise taxes. But that's exactly what Democrats, they love to do. Here's just one example, a personal one. In the county I live in, it's just outside of New York City. My home was just reassessed for almost $200,000 more than what my husband and I bought it for 5 years ago, which means my tax bill, it's going to skyrocket. I know I'm not alone. I'm seeing it on social media all across the country. I'm going to fight it, of course. But the reason the cost of a home nationwide is so high is because inventory is so low. Low because no one can move. Interest rates are triple what they were under President Trump. And now idiots who live in shoebox apartments in big cities, they're now fleeing en masse due to the out-of-control crime, the dirty streets. And of course, we continue to fund a massive illegal invasion that will continue so as long as Joe Biden remains in office. In this exclusive video we're going to show you right here, hundreds there blocked Manhattan streets on Friday protesting against Biden's executive order to allow only 2 million unvetted illegals every year into this country, which is about 2,500 per day. The cost to take care of all these millions of illegals, it's astronomical. In New York City alone, $12 billion a year. $12 billion in New York. That's, by the way, from the New York City website. Nationwide, taxpayers have already shelled out $150 billion per year on border expenses. Could you imagine if they used all of that money, the hundreds of billions of dollars, on schools, healthcare, homeless, veterans, you name it? Anything but people breaking the law coming into our country that we don't know who they are. Meantime, let's take a listen to what some Americans in low-income communities are actually going through.
The breaking point came Friday after a scream from her 4-year-old daughter, Chloe.
When I heard the scream, I jumped up immediately, went to the room, and she was holding her eye. So I asked what happened, and my son and my oldest daughter, who was already in the room, they said that a rat it climbed up on her bed and bit her.
Anxious moments followed as Anastasia called 911.
Within that time frame, she started to run a high fever, and she started to feel like drowsy.
That's a real news report. American kids are being bit in the face by rats because of poor living conditions, roaches, you name it. Yet the Biden regime continues to house illegal aliens in luxury hotels and gives them debit cards worth thousands of dollars each month. How does this make sense? Joe Biden, if you're listening, if you want to actually watch real news, you want to win the White House again? Fix the economy. Close the border. Oh, no, of course you can't do that because you care more about being in power than what's actually best for this nation. And his cohorts, they know the only way Joe Biden can beat Trump is by lying about him. Did you see what Hillary Clinton posted on X on the anniversary of D-Day? Look what she wrote. 80 years ago today, thousands of brave Americans fought to protect democracy on the shores of Normandy. This November, all we have to do is vote. Once again, Hillary is comparing Trump to Hitler. And she dares compare voting to storming a beach under a hail of gunfire to free people from the Nazi regime. This woman, she is broken. And Democrats, they are delusional to actually think we will continue to buy their lies. It is so sad. It really is, if you think about it, that this country had to sink so low for the American people to finally rise up. And God willing, they will on November 5th.